Let me say one thing about all our programs. We're not going to talk about Mark Cuban and what he said yesterday about women and the incredible reaction from women around Donald Trump. We're not going to talk about the AP story about how the White House changed the transcript of what Joe Biden said. There's too many things to talk about every day. Oh, Sean, you want to talk about it those two? We can. My point is, please don't criticize us for not covering everything every day because there's not a news organization in the world that covers everything every day. There's too much going on. Sean, you want to talk about the
Well,
transcript
I would
idea?
just look. I'll leave it at this because I was hoping to talk about both of these things.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah. All
again,
right.
this
Go ahead.
back to
Let's
this.
go ahead.
No,
Burn
no,
up
but
some
I
more
mean,
time. Let's
look,
go.
I'm getting a ton of crap from some folks saying, "Oh my God, you lied." Da 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 da. I never told the White House stenographer to. I mean, they went out and said that this was a grammatical mistake, and then forced the stenographer to change the transcript. You know, for all the crap that I took and Trump people take, this is them going to the stenographer who complained and said, "This is my job is to write what he says." They changed it. That used to be called lying, and I think
Right.
that
So
again.
I'll push back on this, right? Okay. So there is a sanctity notion of you can't mess with the stenographers, that the political people shouldn't tell them what to write. But the president's claiming at least what he said, what he meant. And the White House had a political problem. And their point is we talked to the man himself. Here's what he meant. It's not implausible that that's what he meant to say. It's not what he
But
said, but it's
that's
not what he
not the
meant to
job
say.
of the stenographer. It's not to interpret you. It's to write what you
Well, I
said.
I
You don't get to
understand.
go back in court and
I
say, "Your Honor, I meant to say that they have a stenographer for a
Well,
reason."
you sort of do because it's open to interpretation.
No,
Sean,
it's
you can't hear an
where was this,
apostrophe.
Mark?
You
You know
can't
what?
hear a you
For
can't hear an apostrophe, Sean. You can't. You don't know whether an apostrophe was uttered or not. You just don't. It's not audible.
I mean, look, I'll leave it at this. I wish you guys were around when I was press secretary. I mean, this idea of here's what he might have said, here's what he meant. I was evil and it was horrible. And I mean, like, so
But
you
thank
know what?
but thanks
I'll
to
leave
but
it because
thanks
I
to
don't want to
but
dwell on
thanks
it. But I just,
but thanks to the morning meeting, you're one of America's sweethearts. Dan, do
yeah.
you want to talk about Mark Cuban?
No.
No.
Um, Look, I think
That one you can't, there's no stenographer that can change what he said on that one.
Well,
yeah, I
it's
mean,
funny. He put
look,
out a
I think
clarification. He didn't really take it back.
look,
I know.
I think I don't think anyone's going to cast their vote based on an apostrophe, an edit, or what Mark Cuban has to
I
say.
agree with you,
I
Dan.
I here
I
no
think it,
I think the
But
combination of Mark Cuban and we'll never know for sure, but I think the combination of garbage by Joe Biden and what Mark Cuban said is going to rally the MAGA movement. I
I'll
think
put
that's
a
well, I
pin in
mean,
this.
Mark, the
yeah.
only thing is the MAGA movement is at 11. I mean,
No,
they are
no,
as
I don't think so. So then they could go to 12 over this. Those are two
yeah,
remarks
but
that the MAGA movement. There are
you only
two
get
remarks
one
that the
vote,
MAGA
right?
movement.
Like
I understand,
get vote five
but
times. Like
I
I
understand,
think
but those are two remarks that I believe will be spread far and wide in MAGA land, and that could
well, but
get
I
some
mean, I
people to
think
the
the bigger
polls.
thing is just this sense that like we keep talking about how the Democratic message down the home stretch is to just bash the hell out of Trump. And like, I imagine we're going to see more, kind of misstatements here. To me, that is the bigger thing is just everyone is trying to find a new way to say he's awful and he sucks and he's weak. And, that is but I just think if we're talking about undecided voters,
No, but
all of this stuff,
no, no,
we're
no.
also talking about energizing the base.
Hold on.
Both.
It's not just the
energized.
base, though. It's not the base. I mean, with all due respect, and I'll put a pin in it and end it here. We are on day 6 of national television talking about a stupid comedian telling a bad joke, and yet we can't talk about Mark Cuban insulting all women. We can't talk about the president of the United States going after 75 million Americans, but we can talk about a bad joke that might affect the Puerto Rican community in Pennsylvania. I mean, for
Are
goodness
people
sake.
still
Yes,
talking about the
and by
joke?
the way, I will tell you this again, anecdotally, and I don't. This is not is. You know how many times women have said to me, "God, I didn't want to vote for Trump, but they're pushing me in that direction." So it is affecting people, and I think as
Yeah.
we come to this critical moment where there might not be a ton of folks out there, but these little things are pushing. And you just asked me a moment ago whether or not Donald Trump's comment about Liz Cheney will affect people. Well, you don't think, I know that for a lot of women, they found Mark Cuban's comments offensive. I know that for a lot of people, they said, God, I'm not a huge Trump guy, but being called garbage isn't offensive. They're pushing people over the fence. And so if we're going to talk about a
I
comedian for
yeah.
5 days,
Well,
6 days, we can talk about the president of the United States and we can talk about their chief surrogate, Mark Cuban.
well,
And we
I
can talk about them
the
lying on a
the
transcript.
I
but
will say
But
I
my
will say
point
that.
is
Go ahead.
the outrage. So I agree with everything you said, Sean. And Democrats like Liz Cheney and the comedian and right, like this is why we despise the guy and he's got to be defeated. And Republicans are saying like the double standard. My point is those people in the middle, I think, are not like fired up. They're disgusted. And I don't know if either's offensive comment. I still think it comes down to that, you know, economy versus character issue. And I think they're all just, you know, all of this is white noise. Now watch somebody say something that truly matters. But
so there are some economic stats out today that are bad, you know, on balance, and you know, that goes in the mix. I will say, Sean and I can give you double standard examples every day. The lack of coverage of Cuban is outrageous. And I don't like generally.
what do you mean lack of coverage? It's all over.
It's not.
No, it's over social media.
It's
And
not
it's being
on.
pushed
It's
by the right.
Pick up the New York Times and the Washington Post. Watch the network news. Watch the liberal cable networks. They are ignoring one of her top surrogates saying something totally offensive, and then given a chance to take it back and really doesn't.
But
and
I don't think most
the
people pick up the New York
mobilization.
Times anymore. That's its problem.
Well, that's true. All right.